Hello everyone. We are live again. We are back for our live study session. Let's check we are live or not. Yes, Shivani's diary is live. Happy December to everyone. मेरी तरह कौन कौन पैनिक है दिसंबर देखते ही. Okay. Hi, good morning, Prem. Good morning. वाईफाई लग गया. We got Wi-Fi. आवाज आ रही है? ओके. सो आज क्या करना है? ये है मेरा प्लान. परफेक्ट साउंड है. अच्छा साउंड आ रहा. थैंक गॉड. ओके. तो मेरा पॉलिटी रैप अप करना है क्योंकि चैप्टर्स तो पढ़ लिए हैं बट उसका सारा एमसीक्यूज वगैरह करना है और अच्छे से रिवाइज करके पॉलिटी को ख़त्म करना है आज या कल तक. उसके बाद मेरे को स्टार्ट करना है मैथ्स और करंट अफेयर्स. सो दिस इज़ आवर प्लान इस वीक का. मंदिर की घंटी सुनाई दे रही है. तो आज मतलब पूरे दिन रिवीजन चलेगा और क्वेश्चंस चलेंगे और मे बी कल या परसों से स्टार्ट करेंगे मैथ्स और करंट अफेयर्स. कहाँ थे अपन? ओके. वैसे भी मेरी आवाज़ ना लेट जाती है लाइव में क्योंकि ये दूसरे ऐप से लाइव होता है तो लेट आवाज़ जाती है. ओके. तो स्टार्ट करते हैं अपना आज का टास्क. ओके. हैप्पी स्टडी. 11 बजे मिलते हैं फिर ब्रेक पे. Start. Where it is Supreme Court. Okay, so we are starting our study session. सुप्रीम कोर्ट का ऑर्डर. जिंदगी संवार दो, एक नहीं बहार दो, दिन नहीं बदल दो, मैं तो प्यार सा चमत्कार हूँ। कहाँ गया? अभी मेरा सपना है कि सबके सपने सच में करूं, आसमां को छोड़ो। मानो या न मानो, मैं एक तरह ओके, ये हो चुका था हमारा, हमें स्टार्ट हुआ था। मानो यार नहीं, ये हो चुका था, एडिट हमारा गायब हो गया था। चार पेज है तुम्हारे। डन डन। मेरे फटे पुरानी बुक के लिए क्षमा प्रार्थी, but this is most precious thing to me. Okay, so कहा थे हम? Independence of Supreme Court. भाई ये सारा पढ़ा हुआ था मेरा ना, हर बार एडिट उड़ जाता है, पता नहीं कहाँ चला जाता। Independence of Supreme Court has been assigned a very significant role in the Indian democratic political system. It is a federal court, highest court of appeal, and the guarantor of the fundamental rights of the citizen and guardian of the constitution. Therefore, independence becomes very essential. We can cut it. Assigned to it should be free from the encroachment, pressure, and interference of the executive council of minister and the legislature. It should Okay. The Constitution has made the following provisions to safeguard and ensure the independent and impartial functioning of the Supreme Court. Okay, this is easy. This is easy. तो यहाँ पे इसको यहाँ हटा दो. Sign of very significant role in the federal court है. Highest court of appeal है. We know this. Guarantor of the fundamental rights है. And guardian of constitution है. Very nice. Cut it out. Mode of appointment. ठीक है, ये सारी चीज़ें इसके इंडिपेंडेंस में पार्ट लेती है एक तरीके से. तो ये मोड ऑफ अपॉइंटमेंट, सिक्योरिटी ऑफ टेंडर, फिक्स सर्विस कंडीशन, ये सारा पढ़ा था यार उस दिन. कंडक्ट एक्सपेंसेस, बैन ऑन प्रैक्टिस आफ्टर रिटायरमेंट के बाद नहीं कर सकते. पावर टू पनिश फॉर इट्स कंटेम्प्ट, फ्रीडम टू अपॉइंट इट्स स्टाफ, इट्स जुरिस्डिक्शन कैन नॉट बी curtailed. So mode of appointment, we all know this कि consultation with judiciary itself, because उसमें मेंबर्स ही पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट के हैं. The provision curtails the absolute discretion of the executive as well, ensure that the judicial appointments are not based on any political. ठीक है, एक बार अपॉइंटमेंट देख लेते हैं फिर से क्या था. Where is appointment? Okay. ये भी एडिट गायब हो चुका है हमारा. वेरी नाइस. हर बार पढ़ो और हर बार तुम्हारा एडिट ख़राब हो जाता है. ओके, अब तो आदत हो गई है. आफ्टर कंसल्टेशन विद द चीफ जस्टिस, हाँ तो यही था कि चीफ जस्टिस से कंसल्ट करके ही अपॉइंटमेंट होता है. सो देयर इज़ अ पार्ट ऑफ जुडिशियरी इटसेल्फ. अपॉइंटमेंट of the judges of the Supreme Court are appointed by the President. The Chief Justice is appointed by the President after the consultation with such judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts as he or she deems necessary. तो consultation with judges of the Supreme Court and High Court भी कर सकते हैं. Okay, अगर that's not mandatory, अगर करना चाहे तो. ओके, चीफ जस्टिस ऐसा अपॉइंट होता है. ठीक है, नाइस. द अदर जजेस आर अपॉइंटेड बाय द प्रेसिडेंट आफ्टर द कंसल्टेशन विद द चीफ जस्टिस एंड सच अदर जजेस ऑफ द सुप्रीम कोर्ट एंड हाई कोर्ट as he or she deems necessary. The consultation is obligatory in the case of appointment of other judges. ठीक है, तो जो चीफ जस्टिस से कंसल्ट करना ये ऑब्लिगेटरी है, ये माना नहीं है, करना ही पड़ेगा. बट जब चीफ जस्टिस का कर रहे हैं तो अदर सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजेस से कंसल्ट करना इट्स नॉट नेसेसरी. वो अगर प्रेसिडेंट को मन करेगा तब करेगा, नहीं तो नहीं करेगा. ठीक है. आफ्टर द कंसल्टेशन ऑफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट एंड हाई कोर्ट, एंड द इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज द वर्ड हाई कोर्ट हेयर, क्योंकि ये लगेगा कि हाई कोर्ट नहीं है बट हाई कोर्ट है. नेसेसरी द कंसल्टेशन विद द चीफ जस्टिस. ओके, तो अपॉइंटमेंट हो गया. Security of tenure. The judges of the Supreme Court are provided with the security of tenure. They can be removed from the office of the president only in the manner on the ground mentioned in the constitution. This means that they do not hold मतलब ऑफिस प्रेसिडेंट के प्लेजर पे होल्ड नहीं करता. दो दे आर अपॉइंटेड बाय हिम और हर. दिस इज ऑब्वियस फ्रॉम द फैक्ट दैट नो जजेस ऑफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज बीन रिमूव्ड सो फार. ओके, no judges of Supreme Court has been removed so far. ये भी पढ़े थे ना कि कैसे हटते हैं जजेस ऑफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट, कैसे हटते हैं, ये भी पता था हमें. ओके, Right. Okay. Now, next service condition. The salaries and allowance, leave, and pension of the judges of Supreme Court are determined from time to time by the salaries by the Parliament. Now, cannot be changed to their disadvantage after their appointment except during the financial emergency. That's the condition of the service. हाँ ये पता है. Expenses, the salaries and allowance and pensions as well as the administrative expenses of the Supreme Court are charged on Consolidated Fund of India. तो ये भी Consolidated Fund से ही आता है, and so they are not votable. The Constitution prohibits any discussion in the Parliament or state legislature with the respect of the conduct of judges of Supreme Court in the discharge of their duties except when an impeachment motion. So it cannot be cannot be discussed except impeachment के time में. Can we mark it here except impeachment? Okay, now ban on the practice after retirement. The retired judges of the Supreme Court are prohibited from pleading or acting in any court or before any authority within the territory of India. जो भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जज है रिटायरमेंट के बाद वो काम नहीं कर सकते हैं इंडिया के टेरिटरी के अंदर. This ensures that they do not favor anyone in the hope of the future favor. ठीक है. Power to within the territory of India, of course, within the territory. Okay, Supreme Court can punish any person from its contempt. Thus, its action and decision cannot be criticized and opposed by anybody. Any person for its contempt. Punished for its contempt. Thus, its action cannot be opposed or criticized. ये तो मम्मी बन गया. Freedom to appoint its staff. The Chief Justice of India can appoint officers and servants of the Supreme Court without any interference from the executive. The Chief Justice of India can appoint officers and servants of the Supreme Court without any interference from the executive. He or she can also prescribe their condition of services. अच्छा ठीक. Staff appoint कर सकते हैं. The jurisdiction cannot be curtailed. The Parliament is not authorized to curtail the jurisdiction and the powers of the Supreme Court. The Constitution has guaranteed to the Supreme Court jurisdiction of various kinds. However, the Parliament can extend the same. So it cannot curtail, but it can extend. Jurisdictions. ये भी तो पढ़ा था ना उस दिन. The Constitution has conferred a very extensive jurisdiction and vast powers on the Supreme Court. It is not only a federal court like American Supreme Court, but also a final court of appeal like British House of Lords, the upper house of the British Parliament. It is also the final interpreter and guardian of the Constitution and guarantor of the fundamental rights of the citizens. Further, it has advisory and supervisory powers. Between the center and one state, between the center and any state. So this is like center. Wait a minute. This is like center one center or one or more states. So it's like center or state or center or states. Okay. Next is between center or any state. Center or state or states and state. Between two or more states. Between two or more states. In the federal dispute, the Supreme Court has exclusive original jurisdiction. Exclusively, no other court can decide such dispute or With regard to exclusive original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, 2 points should be noted. One, that dispute must involve a question, whether of a law or fact. So, with regard to the exclusive original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, 2 points should be noted. One, the dispute must involve a question. So, this is kind of break time, but I think I will continue with my study. I don't know what's the issue with brightness. बहुत ज़्यादा brightness है. I think it's good now. With regard to the exclusive original jurisdiction, ठीक है, 2-3 मिनट ब्रेक लेके पानी पीते हैं. Supreme Court, 2 points should be noted. One, the dispute must involve a question, whether of a law or fact, on which the exists. With regard to the exclusive original jurisdiction of Supreme Court, 2 points should be noted. One, the dispute must involve a question, whether of law or fact, on which the extent of legal right depends. Thus, the question of political nature are excluded from it. Okay. देखो ये अभी सारे एडिट्स किए थे जस्ट ऑन कैमरा एंड मेरे से गलती से बैक हुआ एंड अगेन सारे एडिट्स गायब हो गए. दिस इज़ एनफ. लाइक अब मेरा दिमाग ख़राब हो रहा. भाई एक एक लाइन पर थैंक गॉड वापस आ गया. मेरे को लगा मेरे एडिट्स फिर से उड़ गए. ओह माय गॉड. मेरे को लगा यार 1 घंटे मतलब इतने टाइम से पढ़ाई कर रही है वो सारे एडिट्स ख़त्म हो गए फिर से. बट वी आर सेफ. थैंक गॉड. In 1961, the first suit. Okay, we are safe. Let's start next session. Who's there? Hello, hello. So we are starting our next session. The Constitution has constituted the Supreme Court as a guarantor and defender of the fundamental rights of the citizen. The Constitution has constituted the Supreme Court as a guarantor and defender of the fundamental rights. So the Supreme Court is empowered to issue writs, including habeas corpus. ये सब तो ठीक है. For the enforcement, okay. For warrant cert. ये सारे तो जो भी हैं हाँ सुप्रीम कोर्ट के वो सब पार्डनिंग पावर है जो कि प्रेसिडेंट का ठीक है. For the enforcement of the fundamental rights of an aggrieved citizen. In this regard, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction in the sense that an aggrieved citizen can directly go to the Supreme Court. Okay. तो रिट्स jurisdiction है There's also a difference between the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court can issue writs only for the enforcement of the fundamental rights, not for the other purposes. But High Courts can issue not only for the enforcement but for other purposes. Okay, so the jurisdiction of High Court is wider than the Supreme Court. This is a very important line, and it should The Supreme Court here appeal against the judgment in the criminal proceedings of the High Court. If the High Court has on appeal reversed an order of acquittal in 1970, the Parliament had enlarged the criminal appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Accordingly, an appeal lies to Supreme Court from the judgment of the High Court if the High Court has on appeal reversed an order of acquittal of accused person and sentenced. Appeal by special if the Supreme Court is authorized to grant in its discretion special leave to appeal from any judgment in any matter, okay, passed by any court. It is discretionary power and hence cannot be claimed as a matter of right. So it's not mandatory in one sense. ठीक है. It can be granted in any judgment whether final or. मेरे ख्याल से समझना उतना भी इसके लिए तो ज़रूरी नहीं है. पावर ऑफ जुडिशियल रिव्यू एक बार देख लेते हैं और सुप्रीम कोर्ट एडवोकेट्स is not that important, I guess. Advisory jurisdiction. The Constitution, Article 143, authorizes the President to seek the opinion of the Supreme Court in the two categories of matters on any question of law or fact of the public importance which has arisen or which is likely to arise. So, President seek करेगा opinion to the Supreme Court, not Supreme Court to the President, okay? और दूसरा क्या है? On any dispute arising out of any pre-constitution treaty, मतलब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से पहले कुछ ऐसा है जिसमें डिस्प्यूट आ रहा है, engagement or on any dispute arising out of pre-constitution treaty which is excluded from the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. एक मिनट, अगर वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट के ओरिजिनल जुरिस्डिक्शन से ही बाहर है तो प्रेसिडेंट उस पर कैसे सजेशन ले सकता है? अगर कुछ सुप्रीम कोर्ट के ओरिजिनल जुरिस्डिक्शन से ही बाहर है तो प्रेसिडेंट उस पर सजेशन ले कैसे सकता है? ये तो अजीब सी बात है. सो वी शुड कंफर्म इट फ्रॉम चैट जीपीटी. Okay. This is provision under 143 article. But my question is, if it is excluded from the original jurisdiction of Supreme Court, then how President can seek opinion from Supreme Court on that matter? La, 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 la. The matter cannot be heard. Under Article, the President may seek Supreme Court for the advice on any question of law or any matter of. ठीक है. This is not a case. This is not a dispute. It does not fall under the original jurisdiction at all. भाई है क्या ये? क्या बला है ये? मेरे मन में ना पहले ही क्वेश्चन आ जाता है इतना कंफ्यूजन वाले कि उसके आगे की लाइन पर ही नहीं जाती मेरे से. अरे भाई क्या हो रहा? कॉपी 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 कैट. I have doubt in point B. Right, let's clear point B precisely. Yes, so my doubt is like if it is excluded from the Supreme Court original jurisdiction, then how can President still send it to the Supreme Court for opinion? ठीक है. The Supreme Court settles dispute between center versus state. But Article 131 explicitly excludes dispute arising from pre-constitution treaties, because they are old and cannot. But Article 143 में क्या है? This is completely separate. If the matter is outside 133, President can still ask advice on it. भले ही वो ओरिजिनल जुरिस्डिक्शन में नहीं है, फिर भी एडवाइस मांग सकता है. इट इज़ नॉट बाइंडिंग और ये जजमेंट इसमें नहीं कर सकते, लेकिन हाँ ये एडवाइसरी है. और वो एडवाइसरी मतलब एडवाइस तो कोई किसी को दे सकता है ना, तो ऐसा है. इट्स नॉट बाइंडिंग एट ऑल. ओके, which is excluded. So this is advisory. This is not binding. This is advisory. Not binding. Just advisory. Advisory. Da-da-da. Okay. In the first case, the Supreme Court may tender or may refuse to tender its opinion. But in the second case, the Supreme must tender its opinion to the President. or nearby history, non-history. हाँ. First case, the Supreme Court may tender or may refuse to tender, but in the second case, the must दोनों में बस advisory है. It is not binding on the president. He or she may follow or may not follow the opinion. However, it facilitates the government to have an authoritative legal opinion on a matter to be decided by it. क्या कह गए सिया? The Supreme Court jurisdictional power with respect to the matters कहाँ गया भाई रहने दे तू. Court of record. As a court of record, the Supreme Court has two powers. The judgment proceedings and act of the Supreme Court are recorded for the perpetual memory and testimony. These records are admitted to be it has the power to punish contempt of itself. The Supreme Court has ruled that has the power to punish for contempt not only for itself but also of high courts and supreme subordinate court. ठीक है. Power to punish for contempt of itself, also of high courts and subordinate courts and tribunals functioning in the entire country. Okay. The judgment proceedings and act of the Supreme Court are recorded for perpetual memory and testimony. These records are admitted to be evidentiary value and cannot be questioned when produced before any court. They are recognized as legal precedents and legal references. Okay. So it has a court of record. तो इसके जजमेंट जो हैं वो सब रिकॉर्डेड रहेंगे और वो एज अ रेफरेंस यूज होंगे आगे. Judgments recorded for perpetual memory and testimony, and these are recognized as reference one in one sense. Okay. The Contempt of Court Acts. The Act also provides for that no court shall initiate any proceeding of contempt after the expiry of 1 year from the date of which further this act is not applicable to contempt of the Nyaya Panchayat or other village courts which have been established for the administration of the justice. The power of the judicial review, the power of the Supreme Court to examine the constitutionality of the legislative enactments. Judicial review is the power of the Supreme Court to examine the constitutionality of the legislative enactments and executive orders. ठीक है. of both the central and state government on examination. If they are found to be violative of the Constitution, they can be declared as illegal, unconstitutional, and consequently they cannot be enforced by the government. Very good, very nice. मतलब जुडिशल रिव्यू से एग्जामिन करता है कि क्या ब्रीच कर रहा है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल, जो भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली वैलिड है या नहीं है, तो एक तरीके से बस देखेगा. ठीक है, हटाओ. Heritage. Okay. Review jurisdiction, constitutional interpretation. This is something important. गायब. Other powers. अच्छा, इसमें है ही नहीं. So this is break. or 2-3 minutes, 4 minutes. We'll come back again. Okay. So 1 minute left ब्रेक ख़त्म होने में. But we are starting again. बस ये चैप्टर हो ही गया. Constitutional interpretation. The Supreme Court is the ultimate interpreter. It can give final within spirit and content of the provision of the Constitution and the words used in the Constitution. While interpreting the Constitution, the Supreme Court is guided by a number of doctrines and भाई ये कौन कौन से डॉक्ट्रिन्स हैं? Oh my god, this is insane. Important doctrines. Various doctrines in interpreting the Constitution is this much. Other powers. It decides the dispute regarding the election of the president and the vice president. In this regard, it has original, exclusive, and final authority. Okay. So it cannot be decided by anyone else. It is decided by the Supreme Court, and it is exclusive power. It inquires. It inquires into the conduct and behavior of the chairman of and members of the UPSC and SPSC and ये If it finds them guilty of misbehavior, it can recommend to the president for their removal. The advice tendered by the Supreme Court is binding on the president. For removal. It is authorized to withdraw the cases pending before the High Court and to dispose them by itself. It is authorized to withdraw the cases pending before the High Court and dispose them by itself. It can also transfer a case or a bill pending before one High Court to another High Court. Acha. Authorized to withdraw the cases pending before the High Courts ट्रांसफ़र भी कर सकता है वन हाई कोर्ट टू अनदर. Its law is binding on all courts. Its decree or order is enforceable throughout the country. All authorities, civil and judicial, in the country should act in aid of the Supreme Court. ठीक है, very understandable. It has power of judicial superintendence and control over all the courts and tribunals functioning in the entire country. The Supreme Court jurisdiction and powers with respect to the matters and union list can be enlarged by the Parliament. The Supreme Court's jurisdiction and powers with respect to the matters in the union list can be enlarged by the jurisdiction can be enlarged by the Parliament, but it cannot be reduced. ठीक है. Further, its jurisdiction and powers with respect to other matters can be enlarged by special agreement between the center and the states. तो एक और तरीके से further the jurisdiction power with respect to other matters. अच्छा, यूनियन लिस्ट के मैटर में पार्लियामेंट से बन सकता है. Jurisdiction with respect to the matters union list can be enlarged by parliament और other matters में center and state के agreement से. Okay. India and American Supreme Court compared. We don't need comparison. ये तो भरा था. The appellate covers constitutional, civil and criminal cases. It has a very wide discretion to grant special leave to appeal in any matters against the judgment of any court or tribunal except military. It has a very wide discretion to grant special leave to appeal in any matter against the judgment of any court or tribunal except military. It has advisory jurisdiction. It has no advisory. Its scope is limited. It depends right of the citizen according to procedure established by law. And due process of law. Its jurisdiction and power can be enlarged by parliament. Can be enlarged by the parliament. It is the power of It is the power of judicial superintendence and control over state courts due to integrated judicial system. लेकिन इसका इंटीग्रेटेड नहीं है. ठीक है. Article 124 of the Constitution, maximum number Of judges, 7, including Chief Justice of India, 8. अभी कितना है? 33, 34. Article 124(1). There shall be Supreme Court consisting of Chief Justice and until Parliament by law prescribe a larger number of not more than अच्छा 7 होना चाहिए, लेकिन अगर पार्लियामेंट प्रिस्क्राइब करेगा ज़्यादा तो ज़्यादा हो सकता है. ठीक है. एस्टैब्लिशमेंट 124. Power of judicial review. In India, it is the constitution that is supreme and that a statute law to be valid must be conformity with the constitutional requirement, and it is for the judiciary to decide whether any enactment is constitutional or not. ठीक है. Judiciary will decide कि ये constitutional है या नहीं. Our constitution contains express provisions for judicial review of legislation as to its conformity with the Constitution. This is especially true as regards the fundamental rights to which the court has been assigned the role of sentinel on QVibe. What is that? Constitution contains express provisions for judicial review of legislation as to its conformity with the Constitution. This is especially true as regards the fundamental rights to which the court has been assigned the role of. Sorry, I couldn't understand this. एक बार. As long as this. अच्छा ठीक है, ये काम करो, पेन कर लो उसको तब तक. As long as some fundamental rights exist and are part of the power of judicial review has also been exercised with a view to see the guarantees afforded by these rights are not contravened. The Constitution is supreme lex, the permanent law of the land, and there is no branch of the government above it. ठीक है. Every organ of the government, be it placed in no authority house, lofty can claim that it shall be a sole judge of the extent of the power under the Constitution or whether its action will confine such powers laid down by the Constitution. The court is the ultimate interpreter of the Constitution, and to this court is assigned the delicate task of determining what is the power conferred on each branch of the government, whether it is limited, or if so, what are the limits, and whether any action of the branch transgresses such limits. तो ये जो भी फाइनली है कि कौन अपने पावर में है, कौन सही कर रहा है गलत कर रहा है, वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट कर सकता है. इट इज़ अ फंक्शन ऑफ द जजेस में their duty. It is the function of the judges may their duty to pronounce upon the validity of law. Hmm. May their duty to pronounce upon the validity of law. Validity of law कौन करे? Judges. If the courts are totally deprived of that power, the fundamental rights conferred on the people will become a mere adornment, because if courts are totally deprived of that power, the fundamental rights conferred on the people will become mere adornment, because rights without remedies are writ in water. A controlled constitution will then become uncontrolled. ठीक है. The judges of the Supreme Court have been entrusted with the task of upholding the Constitution. The judges of the Supreme Court have been entrusted with the task of upholding the Constitution, and to this end have been conferred the power to interpret it. It is they who have to ensure that the balance of power invoiced by the Constitution is maintained, and that the legislature and executive do not, in discharge of their function, transgress constitutional limitation. The founding fathers were wisely therefore incorporated in the Constitution itself the provision of judicial review so as to maintain the balance of the federalism, to protect fundamental rights, fundamental freedoms guaranteed to the citizens, and um, and to afford a useful weapon for affability, availment, and enjoyment of the equality, liberty, and fundamental freedoms, and to help to create a healthy nationalism. The function of the judicial review is a part of the Constitution to meet new conditions and need of the time. Constitutional provision for judicial review. Though the phrase judicial review has nowhere um, judicial review budget हो गया, बजट है, जुडिशियल रिव्यू है, फेडरलिज्म है, फेडरेशन है, ये सारे वर्ड्स नहीं है ना. जुडिशियल रिव्यू नो in the constitution the provision of the several article explicitly confers the power of judicial review on the Supreme Court and High Courts. These provisions are explained below. Article 13. Article 32, Article 131, 132, 133, 134, 134A, 135, 136, 143, 226, 227, 245. Okay. That it is the right to move the Supreme Court for enforcement of the fundamental rights and empowers the Supreme Court to issue direction or order. Original appellate jurisdiction सिविल केसेस में, ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल केसेस में, ये क्रिमिनल केसेस में, सर्टिफिकेट फॉर अपील टू सुप्रीम कोर्ट फ्रॉम हाई कोर्ट. It powers the Supreme Court to exercise the jurisdiction and the power of the federal court under any pre-constitutional law, authorizes the Supreme Court to grant special leave to appeal from any court or tribunal except military tribunal and court-martial. Article 143 authorizes the President to seek the opinion of the Supreme Court on any question of law or fact and on any pre-constitutional legal matters, empowers the High Court to issue direction or orders so it can be challenged. The constitutional validity of legislative enactment or an executive order can be challenged in the Supreme Court or High Court on the following three grounds.